Ray Dalio owns 742 stocks in his Bridgewater portfolio that's worth $18.9 billion. In this video, we're covering his top 10 biggest positions, starting with number 10, Meta. Meta is the social media giant that makes up 1.7% of the portfolio. Dalio first bought shares of Meta back in the second quarter of 2013. Since then, he's bought 18 times and sold shares 21 different times. On his original cost basis, Meta is up 149%. Most recently, he bought Meta in the last two quarters of 2023. It's been an active purchase for him since at least the middle of 2021. After a remarkable crash and rebound in its stock price, today Meta is a $1.31 trillion company that trades $30 below its 52-week high. Dalio is not alone as a super investor in Meta, with 25 other super investors owning the company. Meta Platforms is the fourth most owned super investor stock. Today, a discounted cash flow analysis based on the 10-year treasury says Meta's about fairly valued, just giving it a slight 1% upside. Analysts are less bullish on the company, giving it a $460 price target and a 5% downside. Ray Dalio is a hedge fund manager who founded Bridgewater Associates back in 1975. Today, it's the world's largest hedge fund with $97.2 billion in assets under management, and Dalio himself is worth more than $20 billion. The holdings we're looking at are publicly reported. They're outside of Bridgewater specialty funds. Until October of 2022, Dalio served as one of the co-investors in Bridgewater. At that time, he decided to step back, and as Bridgewater's founder, today he serves more as an investment mentor. Ray Dalio's investment strategy emphasizes diversity and stability. He does this by investing in companies that have uncorrelated risks. Dalio's also a prolific author, having two bestsellers, Principles for Life and Work and The Changing World Order. While he's no longer Bridgewater's main investor, his advice and principles foundationally shape their portfolio. Now let's keep looking at his holdings. In the ninth spot, we have McDonald's, making up 2% of the portfolio. Dalio first bought McDonald's during the global financial crisis in the fourth quarter of 2008. Since then, he's been about even on the business, buying 17 more times and selling 17 times. In Bridgewater's current stake, which they've rebuilt since 2020, McDonald's is up around 21%. Today, this fast food giant is a $203 billion market cap that trades $18 below its 52-week high. Somewhat as a surprise, only 4 other super investors own McDonald's. A discounted cash flow analysis supports that McDonald's is around fairly valued, with just around a 2% upside and a $288 current fair value. Analysts are much more bullish on the company, with a $330 price target and a 17% upside. Next, Pepsi makes up 2.3% of the portfolio in the 8th spot. Dalio currently owns $427 million of Pepsi. He first bought into Pepsi before the global financial crisis in the fourth quarter of 2005. Since then, he's bought 31 more times and sold shares in 28 different quarters. Similar to McDonald's, after rebuilding his stake in Pepsi at the beginning of 2020, on his cost basis, Pepsi is up 15%. Pepsi, as most of you know, is the $240 billion soft drinks giant. It trades $21 below its 52-week high, in the middle of its price range in the last year. Pepsi is owned by 10 super investors today. It's the 27th most owned company. Lindsell Train is the biggest super investor in Pepsi, with it making up 10.7% of his portfolio. The numbers support Pepsi's around fairly valued, with just a 2.3% upside and a $179 current fair value. Analysts are a little bit more bullish, but not by much. They support a $184.50 price target and a 5.5% upside. Number 7 brings us to our first ETF. At 2.3% of the portfolio, we have the State Street S&P 500 ETF. This common fund trades as stock ticker SPY. It's weighted by market cap, so most of its holdings are US giants. Today, SPY has $536 billion of assets under management. As a diversified fund, it's going to have a lot of overlap with Dalio's other positions. Even with this overlap, it's well diversified, and that's why it's such a big holding. Dalio first bought the ETF in the middle of the global financial crisis during the second quarter of 2009. He's bought shares 17 more times and he's sold 39 times. Since then, Dalio's netted a gain of 286% on his cost basis. His most recent purchase was during the COVID market crash in the spring of 2020. At number 6, making up 2.3% of the portfolio as well, we have Johnson & Johnson. This pharmaceutical giant had a recent spinoff in 2023 of its consumer health segment, which now trades as Kenvue. Johnson & Johnson today is a pure-play pharmaceutical and medical technology business. Dalio first bought the business in the fourth quarter of 2005. Since then, he's added in 28 different quarters and sold shares in 32 quarters. Johnson & Johnson is another blue chip stock that he built his position in during the stock market crash of 2020. In this time with his recent ads and sells, he's down 1.9% on the holding. Johnson & Johnson today is a $381 billion company that trades $13 above its 52-week low. I recently made a video on Johnson & Johnson, which you can look at for a more in-depth valuation, yet today a discounted cash flow analysis says Johnson & Johnson's around fairly valued, with a $163 fair value and a 3.4% upside. Analysts are less bullish on the company, but also say it's around fairly valued, with just a 2.5% downside. Right now, Johnson & Johnson is owned by 12 different super investors, but it's a small position for most. It's the 17th most owned super investor stock. Now we're cracking the top 5. At 2.6% of the portfolio, we have Coca-Cola. Dalio has his eye on these consumer staples and will continue to see more of those as we go through the portfolio. His Coca-Cola holding is worth $490 million. He first bought the business in the fourth quarter of 2005, coinciding with some of the timing of his other buys. Since then, he's bought Coca-Cola in 34 different quarters and sold in 26 quarters. He rebuilt a position in 2019, and since then, those shares are up about 11% overall. Coca-Cola is the world's leading non-alcoholic beverages business, coming in at a $264 billion market cap. Today, the company trades just $3 below its 52-week high. Warren Buffett's the leading super investor in this soft drink giant and maybe one of its leading consumers as well. Buffett's famous for drinking 6 cherry Cokes a day. Outside of Buffett and Dalio, 7 other super investors own Coca-Cola. A discounted cash flow analysis supports around a $63.50 fair value, giving Coca-Cola a 3.7% upside. At number 4, we have a somewhat surprising position for Bridgewater. It's Costco. It makes up 2.7% of the portfolio. Costco was famously loved by Warren Buffett's late-great business partner, Charlie Munger. It's interesting some of Dalio's top individual stocks are those loved by Buffett and Munger as well. Costco was also first purchased by Dalio in the fourth quarter of 2005. Since then, he's bought shares in 20 different quarters and sold in 18 different quarters. Most recently, he rebuilt a stake in the company in 2020 as well. Since then, these shares are up 78%. He's been selling in 5 of the last 6 quarters, after buying straight for nearly 2 years. Today, Costco trades $50 below its 52-week and all-time highs. It's the $325 billion membership club retailing giant, beloved by many. Outside of Dalio and Munger's personal holding in Costco, it's only owned by 5 other super investors, each just making it a marginal position in their portfolios. A DCF supports a 3.5% upside with a $758 current fair value. Analysts aren't quite as confident, but they say Costco's around fairly valued today, though there's a mix of buy, hold, and sell ratings. In the third spot, we have our final individual stock and the last consumer goods company on our list. It's Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble makes up 4% of Bridgewater Associates' portfolio. The position comes in at $753 million. It was first bought by Dalio in the fourth quarter of 2006, and since then, he's bought Procter & Gamble in 21 different quarters and sold in 19. It's yet another stake built up in 2020. It's a recurring trend that we're seeing here. So far, there's a mix of buy and sells, only giving him a slight gain of around 14%. The $382 billion consumer goods company trades at its 52-week highs. Procter & Gamble's owned by 7 different super investors and makes up a small percentage of most of their portfolios. The numbers also say Procter & Gamble's around fairly valued, with just a 2.4% upside. Most of these positions so far have been near that fair value. Dalio's second biggest position at number 2 is the BlackRock iShares Emerging Markets ETF. This makes up 5.1% of the portfolio. Dalio's a huge advocate for diversification, and his top holdings aren't any different. He's owned this emerging markets ETF since the third quarter of 2016. Since then, he's bought in 15 different quarters and sold in 13. Today, the position's around $1 billion, and it's actually been a losing one for Bridgewater. It's down 2.8%. After buying 4 million shares in the first 3 quarters of 2023, they sold 500,000 shares in the fourth quarter. The top 5 holdings in this fund are Taiwan Semiconductor, Samsung, Tencent, Alibaba, and Reliance Industries. Now, what's Ray Dalio's top holding? Coming in at 5.9% of the portfolio, it's the iShares S&P 500 ETF. With much love for diversification, Dalio really didn't start buying this one until more recently, since 2020. He first had a small holding in the third quarter of 2010. Since then, he's added 17 more times and sold in 8 different quarters. On a cost basis of $700 million, his position is up 60%. Like the other ETF that's a major holding, this is composed of the US tech giants, including Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, and Meta. There's plenty of overlap in Dalio's portfolio, with a standard S&P 500 ETF combined making up 8.2% of it. That's his largest holding by far. What are your thoughts on Ray Dalio's and Bridgewater stock portfolio? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to learn about more opportunities in the market, watch this next video.